In September 1939, a consolidated aircraft production table records that the United States of America produced fewer than 3,000 military aircraft in a year. The table is compiled from open sources, verified through diplomatic channels, stamped, and distributed across departments. Alongside it are the figures for Germany, Great Britain, and France. The American line is short and draws no attention. In May 1940, another document introduces a new entry. The same line. The same country. A different number, 50,000. It is not supported by factories, not confirmed by output, not linked to existing capacity. It appears only as part of an official statement. Weeks later, the tables change their columns. New factories are added. New contracts. New aircraft types. Still without completed production. Months later, the monthly reports register the first sharp increases. The format of the documents does not change. The numbers do. In the final months of 1938, the German Air Ministry maintains detailed production tables covering aircraft types, engine output, aluminum allocation, and labor distribution. These tables circulate among offices in Berlin, Rechlin, and regional aircraft works. Reports list the number of operational aircraft assigned to the Luftwaffe, the number under repair, and the monthly replacement rate. Statistical summaries emphasize the balance between bomber, fighter, reconnaissance, and transport units. Hermann Goring, as head of the Air Ministry and Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, receives these summaries regularly through formal channels. The documents reflect a force that has expanded rapidly since 1935, supported by state-directed industrial coordination and rearmament programs operating under conditions of material prioritization and controlled labor assignment. During the same period, foreign intelligence summaries prepared by the German military attaches in Washington and other capitals are transmitted to Berlin. These reports cover public statements by American officials, congressional budget debates, and industrial capacity figures drawn from open sources. The United States is described in these reports as maintaining a comparatively small standing military aviation force, with aircraft production dispersed among civilian firms operating under peacetime conditions. American aircraft manufacturing is characterized as divided among several companies producing limited runs of aircraft, often tailored to commercial or experimental requirements. Production figures reported for 1937 and 1938 show totals significantly lower than those recorded in Germany. In early 1939, German diplomatic cables note increased discussion in the United States concerning air defense and aircraft procurement. These discussions are linked to developments in Europe, including German military actions and diplomatic initiatives. Reports describe congressional hearings in which American military officials request increased appropriations for aircraft procurement and training. The figures mentioned in these hearings remain modest when compared to German internal production targets. German assessments note that American aircraft factories operate on single shifts, with skilled labor spread across automotive, shipbuilding, and consumer goods industries. Within the German leadership, Luftwaffe production is discussed in the context of overall war readiness. Internal memoranda focus on maintaining numerical superiority in aircraft within Europe, sustaining pilot training pipelines, and securing access to raw materials. Goring's office circulates summaries comparing German aircraft inventories with those of Britain and France. The United States is not included as a near-term operational factor in these comparisons. When mentioned, American aviation is treated as a distant industrial potential without immediate military application. In September 1939, following the outbreak of war in Europe, German Air Ministry reports register increased attention to foreign aircraft production. Intelligence sections expand their monitoring of American industrial output. Attaché reports from Washington note the passage of neutrality legislation revisions and increased military procurement planning. The documents describe the American government authorizing orders for new aircraft types and expanding pilot training programs. Production numbers remain low in absolute terms, with deliveries spread across multiple fiscal years. During the winter of 1939 to 1940, the German leadership reviews the air war experience over Poland and prepares for operations in Western Europe. Operational reports emphasize sortie rates, aircraft losses, and replacement flows. Production planning focuses on increasing monthly output to offset combat attrition. Aluminum shortages and engine production bottlenecks are recorded in internal correspondence. The Air Ministry issues directives to streamline aircraft designs and reduce variations that complicate mass production. In the spring of 1940, German intelligence reports highlight a speech delivered by the President of the United States addressing national defense production. Summaries transmitted to Berlin describe an announced objective involving tens of thousands of aircraft to be produced annually. The figure of 50,000 aircraft is noted in multiple reports. These summaries emphasize that the statement is framed as a goal rather than a current capability. Attaches note reactions within American industry, including expressions of concern regarding tooling, labor training, and supply chains. Within the Air Ministry, these reports are circulated with annotations concerning feasibility. Comparative tables are prepared showing German aircraft output in recent years alongside reported American figures. These tables list German annual production in the range of several thousand aircraft, produced under conditions of full mobilization. American figures are shown as a fraction of this output, produced under civilian conditions. Internal briefings emphasize differences in industrial organization, state control, and labor mobilization. Goring receives these briefings as part of his regular review of Luftwaffe affairs. Notes taken during meetings record references to American production claims. The notes reflect an assumption that announced figures exceed practical capabilities under existing American conditions. No operational changes are ordered in response to these reports. Production directives continue to focus on immediate requirements for ongoing and planned campaigns. As German forces conduct operations in Western Europe during May and June 1940, Air Ministry documentation concentrates on operational performance and aircraft losses. Replacement rates become a central concern. Production plants are instructed to increase output where possible, though reports indicate constraints in engine delivery and skilled labor availability. The Air Ministry issues additional regulations to prioritize fighter production and limit non-essential modifications. Meanwhile, intelligence from the United States continues to report legislative and administrative measures aimed at expanding aircraft production. Reports describe the establishment of new government offices tasked with coordinating defense production. Contracts are issued to aircraft manufacturers for large quantities of standardized aircraft models. Attaches note that automobile manufacturers and other industrial firms are being drawn into aircraft component production. These developments are recorded factually in intelligence summaries without assessment of timelines. By late summer 1940, British air operations and German countermeasures dominate Luftwaffe reporting. Loss figures and aircraft serviceability rates are tracked daily. Production reports show gradual increases in monthly output but also rising demand. Internal memoranda reference the need to conserve experienced pilots and reduce non-combat losses. The United States continues to appear in intelligence reports primarily as a supplier to Britain under newly enacted programs. During this period, German intelligence notes American factory expansion projects, including the construction of new plants and the enlargement of existing facilities. Reports describe training programs for aircraft workers and the procurement of machine tools. These developments are recorded as ongoing processes. No estimates are provided regarding completion dates or ultimate output levels. The Air Ministry files these reports alongside other foreign industrial intelligence. In early 1941, German production planning documents reflect continued pressure on resources. Aircraft types are revised to simplify assembly. Engine variants are reduced. Labor allocation orders are adjusted to address shortages. Goring's office reviews production targets and authorizes adjustments within the framework of existing priorities. Foreign intelligence continues to note American aircraft orders increasing in volume, with contracts extending over multiple years. American production figures reported for 1940 show an increase compared to previous years, though still below German levels. These figures are included in comparative tables circulated within the Air Ministry. The tables list aircraft produced, engines delivered, and training aircraft completed. The figures are presented without commentary beyond classification and source attribution. As 1941 progresses, reports from Washington describe further American mobilization measures. Legislation is passed to support large-scale defense production. New agencies are formed to oversee materials allocation and industrial coordination. Aircraft manufacturers are reported to be operating additional shifts. Automobile production lines are reported as being retooled for aircraft engines and components. These developments are recorded in German intelligence summaries as reported facts. Within Germany, Luftwaffe operational demands increase with expanded commitments. Production reports show ongoing efforts to meet replacement needs. Goring's office continues to receive intelligence summaries on foreign production, including those from the United States. These summaries are filed and referenced in briefings without alteration to existing production directives. Throughout this period, the Air Ministry maintains its focus on immediate operational requirements and internal production challenges. Foreign aircraft production, including that of the United States, remains a subject of observation and record within intelligence channels. The documented materials reflect the state of knowledge and reporting as events unfold, recorded through memoranda, tables, and summaries circulated within the German Aviation Administration. During the first half of 1941, German Air Ministry files continue to accumulate intelligence reports concerning foreign aircraft production. The reporting format remains standardized, consisting of source identification, summary of observed or reported activity, and numerical data where available. Attaché communications from Washington describe ongoing contract awards to American aircraft manufacturers, including orders for fighters, bombers, trainers, and transport aircraft. These reports note that production schedules extend over multiple calendar years and are subject to revision based on materials availability and workforce expansion. German intelligence summaries include references to the creation of centralized American agencies responsible for defense procurement and industrial coordination. The documents describe these agencies as issuing directives to prioritize aircraft production over civilian manufacturing. Reports note that American firms previously engaged in automobile, appliance, and machinery production are receiving contracts for aircraft engines, airframes, and sub-assemblies. The intelligence material records the geographic distribution of new production facilities across multiple states, often located near existing transportation infrastructure. Within the German Air Ministry, production conferences are held at regular intervals. Minutes from these meetings record discussions of monthly output targets, delivery delays, and factory damage reports. The emphasis remains on meeting Luftwaffe operational demands. Fighter production receives particular attention due to sustained losses and increased sortie rates. Engine production is identified repeatedly as a limiting factor. Correspondence between the Air Ministry and engine manufacturers records difficulties in scaling output without additional skilled labor and machine tools. The American aircraft production figures reported for early 1941 show continued increases. German intelligence tables list monthly and cumulative totals, with annotations indicating whether figures are confirmed or estimated. These tables are circulated among senior officials and filed alongside similar data for Britain and the Soviet Union. The United States figures are noted as rising steadily, though still presented as projections and deliveries rather than completed inventories. In March 1941, German attaché reports describe American efforts to standardize aircraft designs to facilitate mass production. The reports mention the reduction of model variations and the adoption of interchangeable parts practices. These developments are described in technical terms, often citing statements by American industrial managers or military officials as reported in public sources. No assessments are attached regarding the effectiveness of these measures. As the spring progresses, Luftwaffe operational planning expands eastward. Production directives increasingly reflect anticipated requirements for extended operations. Internal memoranda address stockpiling of spare parts, fuel consumption rates, and aircraft serviceability under varying conditions. The Air Ministry issues instructions to accelerate the delivery of aircraft scheduled for later months where possible. Factory reports indicate limited capacity for further acceleration without additional resources. Intelligence from the United States during this period includes references to large-scale training programs for aircraft workers. Reports describe government-funded vocational courses, on-the-job training initiatives, and the recruitment of women into industrial roles previously occupied by men. These details are recorded as part of broader industrial mobilization reporting. Figures are sometimes included regarding the number of trainees enrolled or facilities constructed. In June 1941, German Air Ministry documentation reflects the initiation of large-scale operations in the East. Operational reports begin to dominate internal communication, with daily summaries of aircraft availability, losses, and repair status. Production planning continues concurrently, with adjustments made to account for increased wear and attrition. The intelligence sections maintain their reporting on foreign production, though distribution of these reports narrows as operational demands increase. American aircraft production figures reported for mid-1941 indicate further growth. Attaché summaries note the completion of new factories and the commencement of output from facilities previously under construction. These reports include descriptions of assembly line layouts, shift patterns, and output goals as reported in American publications or official statements. The reported figures include both military aircraft for American forces and those destined for foreign delivery programs. Within Germany, the Air Ministry continues to compile comparative production tables. These tables list German monthly output alongside reported figures for Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States. The figures are organized by aircraft category. Notes accompanying the tables specify sources and levels of confidence. The documents do not include analytical conclusions, focusing instead on numerical presentation. During the summer of 1941, correspondence between German industrial ministries records increasing strain on raw material supplies. Aluminum allocation becomes a recurring issue. Production schedules are adjusted to reflect material shortages. The Air Ministry issues further directives to limit design changes and prioritize repairs of damaged aircraft over production of new variants. Engine manufacturers report difficulties maintaining output levels due to component shortages. At the same time, American intelligence reports indicate the expansion of aluminum production capacity in the United States. Attaché summaries describe the construction of new smelting facilities and the allocation of electrical power for aluminum production. These developments are recorded as part of the broader picture of industrial mobilization. Figures are cited where available, often derived from public announcements. By late summer 1941, German intelligence notes that American aircraft production figures for the year are approaching levels previously announced as goals. The reports emphasize that many aircraft are still in various stages of completion or delivery. The distinction between contracted, produced, and delivered aircraft is maintained consistently in the reporting. These distinctions are reflected in the tables circulated within the Air Ministry. Operational demands on the Luftwaffe continue to increase. Production reports show that monthly output is insufficient to fully replace losses while expanding force structure. The Air Ministry issues additional orders to extend aircraft service life through maintenance and field repairs. Training units are instructed to conserve aircraft hours where possible. These directives are documented in official memoranda. American reports during this period describe the introduction of round-the-clock production schedules at several major aircraft plants. Intelligence summaries note the adoption of multiple shifts and the recruitment of additional labor. The reports also describe the involvement of federal agencies in resolving labor disputes to prevent production interruptions. These details are recorded without commentary. As autumn 1941 begins, German Air Ministry intelligence sections receive updated American production figures indicating a sharp increase in completed aircraft. The figures are presented in monthly increments, showing acceleration compared to earlier in the year. The reports note that these figures include training aircraft in addition to combat types. The breakdown by category is provided where available. Within the Air Ministry, these figures are filed alongside other foreign intelligence. Production planning continues to focus on immediate Luftwaffe requirements. Minutes from meetings record ongoing concerns regarding engine reliability, pilot availability, and factory output consistency. No changes in strategic assumptions are recorded in response to the reported American figures. In November 1941, attaché reports from Washington described further American measures to centralize production control. New regulations governing materials allocation and labor assignment are reported. Aircraft production is described as receiving the highest priority. These reports also mention the expansion of subcontracting networks supplying parts to primary manufacturers. German Air Ministry files from this period reflect continued administrative routine. Intelligence summaries are logged, distributed, and archived. Production directives are issued and revised. Operational reports dominate daily communication. The documentation reflects a system focused on managing ongoing operations and production within existing constraints. As the year approaches its end, American aircraft production figures reported for 1941 indicate total significantly higher than those of previous years. The figures are recorded in German intelligence tables with source citations. The tables list cumulative output and monthly rates. The documentation maintains a neutral tone, presenting figures as reported without extrapolation. Throughout this period, Goring's office receives regular briefings compiled by subordinate departments. These briefings include operational summaries, production reports, and foreign intelligence. References to American aircraft production appear as part of the foreign intelligence section. The briefings follow established formats and do not record personal reactions or informal commentary. The records from late 1941 thus show parallel processes, intensified Luftwaffe operational activity and production strain within Germany, alongside steadily increasing reports of American aircraft production capacity. The documentation preserves the sequence of reported events and figures as they are received and processed within the German Aviation Administration. In December 1941, German Air Ministry documentation records the receipt of intelligence summaries noting the formal entry of the United States into the conflict. Attaché reports transmitted through established channels describe immediate administrative measures undertaken by the American government to place all existing aircraft contracts under wartime authority. These reports list emergency directives affecting plant security, labor retention, and production scheduling. The intelligence summaries specify that previously planned delivery timetables are revised, with priority assigned to combat aircraft. Within the German Aviation Administration, no change occurs in the structure or format of reporting. Production tables for December list aircraft completed, engines delivered, and airframes awaiting engines. Operational reports continue to document aircraft availability across active fronts. Intelligence sections incorporate American data into their regular compilations, noting revised production targets announced by American agencies. The figures are attributed to official statements and industrial disclosures. Early 1942 German intelligence reports describe American aircraft factories operating under expanded shift systems. Attaché communications reference 3-shift operations and the introduction of standardized work routines. The reports note the establishment of government inspectors embedded within production plants to oversee compliance with specifications and schedules. These observations are recorded as factual descriptions of reported practices. Comparative tables circulated within the Air Ministry list American aircraft production figures for January and February 1942. The tables differentiate between aircraft completed and those accepted by military authorities. Training aircraft, transport aircraft, and combat aircraft are listed separately where data permits. The cumulative totals show continued increases month over month. The documents do not include projections beyond reported figures. German production planning meetings held during this period focus on addressing shortages intensified by sustained operational commitments. Minutes record discussions of fuel supply, replacement aircraft, and maintenance backlogs. The emphasis remains on allocating limited resources across multiple theaters. Correspondence between the Air Ministry and manufacturing firms references bomb damage to certain facilities and the resulting disruptions to output schedules. American intelligence reporting during the first quarter of 1942 includes descriptions of new aircraft assembly plants coming online. Attaché summaries note the geographic dispersion of these facilities and their integration into existing transportation networks. Reports mention the use of prefabricated components shipped from subcontractors to central assembly points. These details are recorded in technical language consistent with other industrial intelligence. By March 1942, German intelligence tables indicate that American monthly aircraft production exceeds previously reported annual totals from earlier years. The figures are presented numerically, with annotations indicating sources and reliability assessments. These tables are distributed to senior Luftwaffe staff alongside similar data for other foreign powers. No accompanying analysis is included. Operational reporting within the Luftwaffe continues to dominate internal communication. Daily summaries record aircraft losses, repair status, and unit readiness. Production reports note continued difficulties in matching replacement needs. The Air Ministry issues additional directives to extend the service life of existing aircraft and prioritize essential modifications only. Engine overhaul capacity becomes a recurring topic in internal correspondence. American reports during this period describe increased federal involvement in resolving labor shortages. Intelligence summaries reference the recruitment of workers from rural areas and the reassignment of labor from non-essential industries. Training programs are expanded to shorten qualification timelines for skilled positions. These measures are described in the context of sustaining high production rates. In April 1942, German intelligence notes the publication of American production statistics indicating sustained increases across multiple aircraft categories. The figures list fighters, bombers, trainers, and transports separately. The reported totals are recorded in monthly tables. Distinctions between aircraft intended for domestic use and those allocated for foreign delivery programs are maintained where reported. Within Germany, Air Ministry correspondence records ongoing adjustments to production priorities. Certain aircraft types are reduced in favor of others deemed immediately necessary for operations. Factory managers report challenges in implementing changes due to tooling limitations and workforce fatigue. These reports are filed as part of routine production oversight. As spring advances, American intelligence reporting highlights continued expansion of raw material production supporting aircraft manufacturing. Attaché summaries describe increased output of aluminum, magnesium, and synthetic rubber. These materials are listed alongside aircraft production data in broader industrial intelligence compilations. The figures are cited from public sources and official announcements. By mid-1942, German intelligence tables show American aircraft production figures approaching levels comparable to those of other major producers combined. The tables present cumulative totals without commentary. Source notes indicate reliance on American government releases and industrial reports. These documents are circulated within the Air Ministry and archived. Operational pressures on the Luftwaffe remain high. Production reports indicate that monthly output continues to lag behind losses in certain categories. Maintenance units report shortages of spare parts. The Air Ministry issues further orders to prioritize repairs and cannibalization of damaged aircraft. Training programs are adjusted to conserve aircraft usage. American intelligence summaries from summer 1942 describe the streamlining of aircraft acceptance procedures. Reports note the presence of military acceptance teams at factory sites to reduce delays between completion and delivery. The adoption of simplified inspection protocols is mentioned. These details are recorded as part of the broader picture of production acceleration. In July and August 1942, German intelligence tables list American aircraft production figures exceeding earlier announced targets. The tables present monthly and cumulative data. Annotations indicate that figures include both combat and non-combat aircraft. The distinction between airframes produced and aircraft fully equipped is maintained where information allows. Within the Air Ministry, these figures are received and filed. Meeting minutes from this period focus on domestic production challenges and operational requirements. No changes to reporting procedures or production directives are recorded in response to the intelligence figures. The administrative process continues according to established routines. American reports during this period also describe the expansion of aircraft engine production. Intelligence summaries list new engine plants and increased output rates. The relationship between engine availability and airframe completion is noted in technical terms. These reports are included in industrial intelligence files. By early autumn 1942, German intelligence compilations reflect sustained high levels of American aircraft production. Monthly tables show consistent output across categories. The figures are presented as reported, with confidence levels indicated. These documents are distributed to Luftwaffe leadership as part of regular briefings. At the same time, German production records reflect continued strain under ongoing operational demands. Correspondence references transportation disruptions and workforce shortages. The Air Ministry issues further guidance on prioritizing essential deliveries. These actions are documented in official memoranda. Throughout this period, Goring's office continues to receive standardized briefings encompassing operational summaries, production data, and foreign intelligence. References to American aircraft production are included as numerical entries within intelligence sections. The documentation preserves the sequence of reported figures and events as they are recorded during the course of 1942. In October 1942, Air Ministry filing registers show continued receipt of American production statistics through attaché channels and monitored publications. The reporting remains organized by month and aircraft category, with separate listings for airframes and engines where figures are available. Tables distributed to senior staff indicate that American factories report steady output for fighters, medium bombers, heavy bombers, trainers, and transport aircraft, and that reported totals include aircraft for the United States Armed Forces as well as those assigned under foreign delivery arrangements. Source lines in the intelligence summaries continue to distinguish between official releases, industry statements, and press reporting. Within Germany, production conferences held during the same period focus on repair capacity, aircraft availability, and the sequence of deliveries from principal manufacturers. Factory correspondence notes continuing disruptions in transport and component supply, as well as the administrative burden of design changes and field modification requirements arriving from operational commands. Engine delivery schedules remain a recurring subject in meeting notes, with plants reporting shortfalls in certain components and periodic stoppages linked to materials allocation and subcontractor delays. Airframe plants report completed fuselages awaiting engine installation, and field repair depots report rising backlogs. American industrial reporting received in Berlin during late 1942 includes references to the consolidation of procurement authority and the issuance of uniform specifications. Intelligence summaries describe the application of standard inspection procedures at production sites and the practice of stationing acceptance officers at factory airfields. Several reports note the use of ferry pilots and the organization of delivery routes to move completed aircraft to operational depots. These items are recorded as procedural descriptions drawn from reported practice. In November 1942, comparative tables circulated within Luftwaffe staff channels list American monthly output continuing at elevated levels. The tables show cumulative totals increasing with each reporting period. The intelligence summaries include itemized references to specific aircraft types, with separate lines where public figures identify fighter and bomber subtypes by manufacturer and model. The tables remain numerical and descriptive, with no extrapolated estimates appended in the main distribution copies. Archival notes indicate filing of supporting clippings and translated extracts. German administrative records for the same month register increasing attention to air defense demands. Communications between operational commands and the Air Ministry address night fighter allocation, radar equipment, and searchlight coordination. Production directives emphasize delivery of fighters and the dispatch of replacement parts for air defense units. Reports from factories include descriptions of damage to facilities, emergency repairs to machine tools, and the relocation of certain operations to secondary sites. These reports contain dates, locations, and inventory lists of damaged or salvaged equipment. In December 1942, intelligence summaries from the United States reference year-end production totals. The figures presented in German tables list the cumulative aircraft completed during the calendar year and distinguish major categories. The reporting includes notes on aircraft engine production and the reported expansion of output for radial and inline engines. Some summaries mention increased output of spare engines and the accumulation of engine stocks at depots. Where the sources provide separate counts for aircraft accepted by the Army Air Forces and Navy, these are reproduced in the German summaries as separate entries. Within German production planning files, year-end schedules are revised to account for component shortages and labor allocation changes. Documentation records meetings with representatives of major manufacturers and subcontractors. Minutes list assigned quotas and revised delivery dates. Internal memoranda record instructions to limit non-essential modifications and to prioritize repair parts for aircraft already in service. Factory correspondence includes reports of overtime arrangements and changes in shift patterns, with appended lists of critical machine tools and bottleneck processes. In January 1943, intelligence channels continue to provide American monthly production figures, now presented with a regular pattern of category breakdowns. The figures show continued high output across combat and training types. Reports mention the ongoing operation of large assembly plants and continued expansion of subcontracting networks supplying wings, fuselage sections, and engine accessories. Several summaries reference the practice of using standardized jigs and fixtures to maintain interchangeability across production lines. These details are filed under industrial practice headings within the intelligence archives. German documents from early 1943 record organizational adjustments in armaments administration affecting aircraft production coordination. Communications reflect the increasing involvement of central armaments offices in setting priorities for materials and labor. Records list allocations of aluminum, steel, copper, rubber substitutes, and fuel for production and test flights. Factory reports describe changes in procurement channels and updated reporting requirements. These administrative changes are recorded in orders and circulars with distribution lists. By February 1943, Luftwaffe operational reports emphasize the continued consumption of aircraft and engines across multiple fronts. Maintenance reports document attrition in engines due to operational hours and combat damage. The Air Ministry issues further directives concerning the retrieval of damaged aircraft for parts recovery and the systematic salvage of usable assemblies. The documentation includes standardized forms for reporting damaged aircraft, listing airframe type, engine type, serial numbers, and the status of key components. American intelligence reporting during the same period includes references to planned production totals for 1943. German summaries list announced targets and report that American agencies describe continued expansion of factory floor space and machine tool deliveries. Reports mention the movement of machine tools by rail to new plants and the establishment of training centers near major production sites. Figures are provided where the sources identify square footage, workforce numbers, or output targets. These figures appear in tables with footnotes indicating the reporting date and publication. In March 1943, German intelligence tables show American monthly aircraft production figures remaining high and, in several lines, increasing. The tables list fighters and bombers as separate categories, and where available, separate heavy bomber counts are provided. Supporting notes mention engine output rising in parallel. Some reports include references to the flow of aircraft to overseas theaters, including ferry routes and staging bases, described through publicly reported movement patterns and official statements. These entries are included as logistical notes rather than operational assessments. German production and repair files during March record further damage to industrial facilities and transportation nodes. Factory situation reports list interrupted electricity supply, damage to roof structures, and loss of machine tools due to blast effects and fire. The reports often include photographs or schematic diagrams in the archive, described in inventory lines as attachments. Emergency repair measures are documented, including temporary relocation of production steps to undamaged buildings and the use of dispersed workshops for sub-assembly work. Records also note the dispatch of technical teams to restore production lines and recalibrate jigs after damage. In April 1943, intelligence reporting on American production includes updated cumulative totals for the first quarter. The figures indicate sustained output at levels described in earlier months. German summaries include notes that American production includes large numbers of training aircraft and transport types in addition to combat aircraft. Separate entries list gliders where the sources provide counts. The summaries also mention the continuing production of aircraft instruments, radio sets, and armament components. These are recorded in separate sections of industrial intelligence, including references to subcontractors and procurement contracts. German Air Ministry correspondence in April includes further directives related to standardization and simplification. Orders direct manufacturers to reduce variations in wiring harnesses, fasteners, and cockpit equipment where possible. Documentation records meetings with design bureaus to approve changes intended to reduce manufacturing time. The records list approved changes with part numbers and implementation dates. Factory reports include updated time and motion schedules for assembly operations, expressed in labor hours per airframe. In May 1943, German intelligence tables list American production totals continuing to rise, with some sources reporting output figures expressed as monthly completions and cumulative totals. The reporting includes separate lines for the Army Air Forces and the Navy where provided. Summaries mention that American shipyards and aircraft plants coordinate production of carrier aircraft and naval patrol types. These items are recorded as part of category breakdowns and are filed alongside reports on American aircraft carrier construction and naval aviation training, where such information appears in monitored sources. Within Germany, May production planning documents emphasize the allocation of skilled labor and the management of apprenticeship programs. Circulars list the assignment of workers to aircraft factories and engine plants. Reports indicate the use of forced labor and foreign workers in certain facilities, recorded in administrative terms regarding headcounts and accommodation arrangements. The documentation includes instructions on workplace supervision, security measures, and the control of access to sensitive areas. These directives are recorded as administrative procedures with signature blocks and distribution rosters. In June 1943, intelligence reports received through German channels list American aircraft production for the first half of the year. The figures show large totals across categories, including heavy bombers and transport aircraft. German summaries note that American agencies report output rates in terms of aircraft per day at certain large plants, as stated in public presentations and press tours. These entries appear with source citations and are filed under production capacity indicators. Some reports include references to the opening of additional engine plants and the expansion of propeller manufacturing capacity. German air defense records in June include increased reporting on bomber attacks and defensive measures. Operational summaries record sorties, interceptions, and aircraft losses within the air defense forces. Repair depots report increased inflow of damaged fighters. The Air Ministry issues directives concerning rapid repair practices and the dispatch of mobile repair teams to forward airfields. Documentation includes standardized priority codes for repairs and parts allocation, listing categories for immediate operational return, partial repair, and parts recovery. In July 1943, intelligence tables list American cumulative production figures that, when combined across categories, approach totals described in American announcements for wartime output. German summaries include annualized projections cited directly from American official statements, describing targets measured in tens of thousands of aircraft for the year. The German documents record these figures in numerical form, with notes identifying whether the figure represents a target, an estimate, or a reported completion count. The distinction between planned and completed aircraft remains a consistent feature of the reporting format. German production files during July record continuing efforts to maintain and increase output under conditions of disruption. Factory reports mention dispersion of certain assembly steps to multiple sites and the creation of additional storage facilities for components to reduce the risk of total loss during attacks. The Air Ministry issues instructions on the safeguarding of drawings, jigs, gauges, and master templates. Records include lists of items designated for relocation and the selection of alternate sites, with transport instructions and security classifications. In August 1943, German intelligence reporting includes updated American production totals for the second quarter and cumulative figures for the year to date. Some summaries note that American agencies report total output exceeding earlier stated goals for particular categories, while other categories remain described as under expansion. The German documents reproduce these figures without commentary. Several reports note that American factories are reporting reduced assembly times per airframe due to stabilized supply chains and experienced labor forces, as described by American industrial managers in public statements. German administrative records in August contain continuing instructions regarding materials allocation, including rationing of aluminum and fuel. Correspondence records the reassignment of materials to engine production and airframe completion priorities. The Air Ministry issues guidance on the substitution of materials where approved by engineering authorities, including alternate alloys and synthetic substitutes for rubber components. These substitutions are recorded with technical specifications and implementation notes. By September 1943, German intelligence tables list American aircraft production figures that, for the year to date, exceed the total annual production figures recorded for earlier years by large margins. The tables list monthly completions as reported and cumulative totals. Supporting notes mention that American output includes a significant number of trainers and transports, as well as combat aircraft for multiple theaters. The German summaries record that American agencies report a continuing ability to increase output due to completed plant expansions and stabilized subcontracting arrangements. German Luftwaffe operational documentation during September continues to record aircraft and engine losses and repair backlogs. Maintenance commands report shortages in certain replacement engines and critical parts. The Air Ministry issues additional orders regarding the redistribution of spare engines among units and the reduction of training flight hours. The orders are recorded in circulars listing effective dates and reporting requirements for compliance. In October 1943, intelligence summaries received in Berlin include American statements describing total aircraft output approaching figures on the order of 100,000 aircraft within a year when training, transport, and combat aircraft are counted together, as presented in American production reporting. German tables reproduce these numbers as reported totals and cumulative counts, with notes indicating whether the count covers calendar year production, fiscal year accounting, or a rolling 12-month period, where the source specifies the basis. Where sources do not specify, German summaries annotate the uncertainty with a classification code indicating incomplete basis information. German administrative files for October record continued revisions to production schedules and further dispersal measures. Factory reports include lists of completed aircraft held at airfields awaiting fuel, cruise, or transport instructions. Engine plants report continued difficulties with certain alloys and bearings, and correspondence lists requests for priority allocation of specific materials. The Air Ministry's internal reporting system continues to compile monthly totals for German output, engine deliveries, and repair completions, and these totals are presented alongside foreign intelligence tables in briefing folders circulated to senior offices. In November 1943, German intelligence reporting continues to list American aircraft production totals at sustained high monthly levels. The category breakdowns remain consistent with earlier months. Reports mention continued production of heavy bombers and long-range transport aircraft, and references appear to the establishment of additional overseas depots for assembly, repair, and distribution. These items are recorded as logistical and industrial notes and filed accordingly. German operational and production records for the same month continue to reflect the demands placed on aircraft availability, the allocation of resources to air defense, and the management of repair capacity. The documentation maintains a procedural tone, recording directives, inventory counts, delivery schedules, and reported figures. The briefings prepared for senior Luftwaffe leadership continue to include American aircraft production numbers as part of the Foreign Industrial Intelligence section, presented in tabular form with source attributions and date stamps, and without appended conclusions. In December 1943, Air Ministry registers continue to show the routine circulation of foreign industrial intelligence tables, including monthly American aircraft and engine production figures compiled from attaché reporting, monitored releases, and translated press material. The tables for November and December list category totals for fighters, bombers, trainers, transports, and naval aircraft where separate counts are available. Several entries cite American statements describing output in terms of completed aircraft accepted by the Army Air Forces and the Navy, with separate columns for deliveries allocated under foreign supply arrangements. The filing notes accompanying these tables specify the date of receipt and the classification level assigned for internal distribution. Within Luftwaffe headquarters channels, briefing folders for senior offices include these tables as annexes to operational readiness summaries and production status reports. The briefing folders retain the same structure used through earlier months: aircraft losses and replacements by theater, repair depot throughput, engine overhaul totals, and factory completion counts, followed by foreign intelligence tables. Distribution lists attached to the folders indicate circulation to offices responsible for production coordination, operational planning, and air defense administration. No change is recorded in the formal procedure for transmitting or filing the American production material. In early January 1944, intelligence summaries received in Berlin note American year-end accounting and new monthly totals for December 1943. The summaries reproduce figures for the calendar year's production totals as reported in American releases, with footnotes indicating whether a figure represents completed airframes, accepted aircraft, or delivered aircraft. Several documents note that American reporting uses both calendar year and fiscal year presentations and that some sources present aggregate totals including training and transport aircraft in addition to combat types. In the German tables, those aggregates are entered as reported totals, with a notation indicating the basis described in the source. German factory situation reports for January 1944 record continuing disruptions to manufacturing sites and transportation corridors. The reports list dates and times of air attacks on specific industrial districts, with inventories of damaged buildings, machine tools, and work-in-progress assemblies. Attached annexes list aircraft components destroyed or rendered unusable, including wing panels, fuselage sections, and engine parts. The reports also list measures taken to restore production, including temporary relocation of machining operations, the use of alternate power supply arrangements, and the reassignment of labor teams for cleanup and repair. These reports are filed in production coordination folders and referenced in subsequent meetings on delivery schedules. During the first quarter of 1944, Air Ministry production tables show monthly completion figures for German aircraft and engines alongside repair totals and depot stocks. The tables include columns for aircraft completed at factories, aircraft delivered to acceptance points, aircraft issued to operational units, and aircraft awaiting engines or armament installation. Engine tables list new engines, overhauled engines, and engines awaiting parts. Internal memoranda note recurring shortages in specific components, including bearings, ignition systems, and certain alloy parts. These memoranda contain requests for priority allocation and list the affected engine models by designation. American intelligence summaries received in February and March 1944 continue to report sustained high output. The monthly figures in German tables show large numbers of training aircraft and transport aircraft, with separate lines for heavy bomber production when such data appears in the sources. Several summaries describe American aircraft plants reporting shortened assembly times and increased acceptance rates, attributed in the source material to stabilized subcontracting and repeated production cycles. German intelligence files record these statements as part of the industrial practice reporting, listing plant names and locations when publicly identified. In Luftwaffe administrative channels, air defense reporting occupies increasing space in briefing folders. Daily and weekly summaries list incoming raid reports, fighter scramble counts, interception claims, aircraft losses, and repair returns. Separate reports from repair depots list the number of damaged fighters received, the average time in repair, and the limiting factors for return to service, including shortages of engines and critical assemblies. Orders issued by the Air Ministry and associated offices specify priority codes for repairs, with directives to return aircraft to service with minimal delay and to defer non-essential modifications. These orders list effective dates and the offices responsible for compliance reporting. In April 1944, intelligence compilations include American statements describing cumulative aircraft production totals for a rolling 12-month period that, when presented as aggregate output including trainers and transports, approach values on the order of 100,000 aircraft. The German tables reproduce the totals as reported, with annotations describing the time basis and category coverage as indicated by the sources. Where the source material presents separate totals for combat aircraft alone, those totals are entered separately. The intelligence summaries include notes on American engine output and propeller production, listing reported totals and identifying major manufacturing firms were named in the source material. At the same time, German production records show continued emphasis on dispersion measures. Circulars and instructions list the relocation of tooling, gauges, and master templates to alternate sites, and the distribution of sub-assembly work among smaller workshops. The documentation includes lists of designated dispersal locations and transport instructions for sensitive equipment. Security directives specify restricted access to relocated facilities and the safeguarding of drawings and jigs. Factory reports attached to these directives list the progress of relocation by date and the status of resumed output at the alternate sites. In May 1944, Air Ministry correspondence records ongoing difficulties in maintaining consistent engine deliveries. Reports from engine plants list stoppages caused by component shortages and damage to associated supplier facilities. Airframe plants report completed assemblies awaiting engines. Administrative notes indicate the reassignment of engines among aircraft types based on immediate operational requirements. These reassignments are recorded in orders specifying engine model, receiving unit, and delivery route. Repair depots submit requests for replacement engines and major assemblies, listing serial numbers and prior service status. Foreign intelligence reporting for May and June 1944 continues to show American monthly output at high levels. The tables reflect category totals for fighters and bombers, and substantial counts for transports and training aircraft. Some summaries include references to American production of specialized aircraft, including patrol aircraft and carrier aircraft, with separate entries where the sources provide them. German files record the establishment or expansion of American overseas depots for aircraft assembly, modification, and distribution, as reported through public disclosures and monitored communications. These entries are filed under logistics and support infrastructure headings. In June 1944, Luftwaffe operational summaries record increased activity in the West and continued air defense demands. Reports list aircraft movements between airfields, the reallocation of fighter groups, and the transfer of replacement aircraft to units reporting critical shortages. Repair and maintenance directives emphasize rapid turnaround and the use of field repair methods to return aircraft to operational status. Documentation includes standardized forms for reporting aircraft written off, listing cause categories such as combat damage, accident, or mechanical failure, and specifying whether components were recovered. Within German leadership briefing notes from this period, references appear to earlier foreign production claims and subsequent reported output figures. In some meeting notes and marginal annotations preserved in Air Ministry files, Goring is recorded as reacting with laughter during the reading or discussion of American aircraft production objectives previously reported as 50,000 aircraft. The notes record the occurrence as part of the meeting record without quotation of spoken remarks. Subsequent briefings continue to include monthly American output totals as numerical tables, with the same source attributions and date stamps as in prior months. In July and August 1944, German intelligence tables continue to list American production in monthly increments. Several sources cited in the summaries present American output in aggregate annual terms, including the stated number of aircraft completed and accepted within the year to date. The German tables reproduce those figures with annotations describing whether the totals include all categories or only combat aircraft. Some reports include separate figures for aircraft produced for the Navy, including carrier-based and patrol types, and for the Army Air Forces. The summaries also record reported American production of spare engines and the distribution of engines to depots and training establishments. German production records during the same months show increasing reliance on repair returns and salvage. Orders direct the systematic recovery of usable parts from wrecked aircraft and the transport of salvageable assemblies to repair depots. Depot reports list recovered components and their condition, including engines, radiators, propellers, landing gear, and armament mounts. The documentation includes procedures for inspection and classification of salvaged parts, with codes indicating suitability for immediate reuse, refurbishment, or scrap. Materials allocation directives specify the reclamation of metals from damaged aircraft and the transfer of recovered alloys to approved recycling channels. In September 1944, Air Defense reports document continuing attack activity and the associated consumption of fighters, ammunition, and fuel. Operational summaries list the number of aircraft committed to interceptions and the serviceability rates of fighter units. Reports from fuel distribution offices note constraints on aviation fuel availability and issue instructions for rationing and prioritization. These instructions specify reduced training flight allocations and limit non-essential ferry flights. Compliance reporting requirements are appended, listing the offices responsible for submitting weekly fuel usage and stock reports. American intelligence material received during September and October 1944 continues to record high aircraft output. Some sources cited in German summaries report year-to-date totals that, when combined across all categories, remain near aggregate values described publicly as approaching or exceeding 100,000 aircraft within a 12-month accounting basis, including training and transport aircraft. The German tables reproduce these values with footnotes describing the accounting basis when available. Additional entries record reported American production of aircraft engines and the expansion of repair and modification facilities supporting overseas operations. These entries remain descriptive and numerical, consistent with prior reporting formats. German production and repair documentation for late 1944 records continued disruption to manufacturing and transport. Factory reports list repeated interruptions to rail movement, loss of shipments, and delays in component delivery. Emergency measures include the rerouting of shipments, the use of alternate depots, and the establishment of local storage to buffer against transport delays. Records note reduced output from some facilities due to evacuation, damage, or loss of power supply. Administrative directives specify the consolidation of remaining resources to maintain priority production lines and repair capacity. In November 1944, German intelligence summaries include updated American production figures and references to continued large-scale output of transport and bomber aircraft. Tables list heavy bomber counts where the sources provide them, along with fighters and trainers. Several reports cite American statements concerning sustained production rates despite operational commitments overseas, with references to standardized manufacturing and large subcontractor networks. German files record these statements as reported, with source notes and receipt dates. Within Luftwaffe operational reporting, November and December 1944 summaries list continued aircraft losses, repair returns, and aircraft transfers between commands. Documentation includes directives to concentrate available fighters for specific air defense tasks and to preserve aircraft for prioritized operations. Maintenance reports list shortages in replacement engines and the increased cannibalization of grounded aircraft to support a smaller number of airworthy machines. Reports from engine overhaul facilities note limitations caused by missing parts and damage to supplier plants. Administrative memos record efforts to reallocate parts among depots and to establish priorities for engine overhaul based on unit requirements. In January 1945, Air Ministry registers continue to receive foreign intelligence summaries, including American production figures for late 1944 and early 1945 as reported through monitored sources and attaché channels where available. The tables reproduce figures for monthly output and cumulative totals, with notes distinguishing between categories. Reports also note American aircraft deliveries to multiple theaters and the continued operation of overseas depots for modification and distribution. These entries remain numerical and procedural in presentation. German production records for January and February 1945 show further reductions and disruptions. Factory situation reports list diminished output from several facilities and the movement of remaining work to alternate sites. Repair depots report shortages of tools, parts, and transport capacity. Airfield reports list aircraft grounded for lack of fuel or serviceable engines. Administrative directives emphasize the safeguarding of remaining aircraft and the allocation of limited resources to essential missions. Reporting requirements continue, with units instructed to submit daily readiness counts and weekly summaries of losses and repair status. American intelligence summaries received during this period continue to present aircraft output in aggregate and category form. Where sources provide updated totals, the German tables record them with date stamps. Some entries reference American reporting of continuing high production of transport aircraft and trainers alongside combat types. The summaries also include reported figures on aircraft engine output and replacement stocks. These figures are entered in the industrial intelligence files in the same tabular format used in preceding years. In March and April 1945, German administrative records reflect continued emphasis on reporting aircraft availability and repair capacity under increasingly constrained conditions. Operational summaries list reduced serviceability rates and difficulties in moving aircraft and parts between locations. Repair depots report evacuation of facilities and the loss of stored parts. Air Ministry correspondence records orders to destroy or remove sensitive materials, including drawings, jigs, and classified equipment, to prevent capture, with lists of items and assigned responsibility for execution. These orders are filed with receipt acknowledgments and distribution records. Foreign industrial intelligence filing continues as long as the administrative channels function. The last received American production figures in these files appear as numerical entries with source notes and receipt dates, listing aircraft output totals presented in American reporting and distinguishing category totals where possible. The documents remain consistent in format, preserving the recorded figures and procedural notes without appended interpretation.